Long travel downhill bikes might not be the most common out on the trails, but the shorter travel bikes that most of us ride, be that cross-country, trail or enduro bikes, use technology that is filtered down from these race bikes. Now, there's been some radical new additions from some of the big key players this year, but also some really cool niche offerings. So let's have a look at the absolute hottest downhill bikes right now. Even if you're not into downhill racing, I'm sure that you can all appreciate what goes into these particular bikes. I mean, we all like riding bikes down hills, but honestly, what these things are capable of today is frankly staggering. And let's face it, there's not many people out there that can actually push a bike with 200mm travel to the absolute limit. And I guess that's kind of what makes downhill racing such a cool thing to watch, even if you're not doing it. Now, some of these bikes have got geometry that's really influenced the trail bikes of today, and some of them are just utter works of art. Check these out. First up, the Mondraker Summum alloy. Now, I feel some of you might be thinking, why are you not putting the carbon model in here? Well, I've got to say the alloy one is the one that's really been doing it for us behind the scenes. We hear that some of the racers have actually preferred the alloy one over the carbon one too. But it's good to have options. Now, it was actually Mondraker that created the forward geometry concept way back in 2011 when they literally got a big block of CNC'd aluminium and welded it like cut and shut style on the front of an existing prototype downhill frame, basically giving a much longer front center, putting the front wheel way out in front of you for control in a steeper terrain. And it's kind of helped the entire market advance on a bit. And really, this bike is the latest in the evolution of the Summum platform, which started off with popularity with Fabian Bell racing one at Maribor in 2009. But look at where this bike is now. Absolute beautiful race bike. Now, it's available in 29-inch, 27.5, and also as a mullet or mixed wheel style setup as a frame option. Now, there's 4 sizes in the 29-inch wheel offering and 2 sizes, small and medium, in the 27.5-inch wheel offering. They all run 200mm of travel, and they've all got very progressive geometry on them. Now, the head angle is 63.5 degrees, which seems to be pretty universal amongst downhill bikes now. Everyone's kind of settled that that is the best compromise. Reach between 430 and 500mm, so it is long for a downhill bike, which is obviously a good thing because you're covering ground extremely fast. Chainstay is 450mm. That's reflective really of what you're doing on the bike at speed. You can't have them too short, otherwise you just won't have the control in the corners. Just look at the thing, look at the lines on this bike. It's unmistakably a Mondraker. They've really refined the look of their bikes over the years. And if you look at this compared to some of their other bikes, like their trail bikes, you'll see those same beautiful lines extending from the head tube there, all the way down the top tube and straight into the seat stays. It's a beautiful looking bike, but clearly a functional work of art. As with all Mondraker bikes, is running the Zero suspension system, so that is their take on the virtual pivot system, driving the shock or compressing the shock from both sides. This one features a coil shock, as you'd imagine, on a downhill bike there. Now, pricing varies. Of course, there is the carbon model, which is substantially more expensive. Seems to be from around $4,799 in the R model, up to $6,699. So by no means a cheap bike, but man, look at that thing. Okay, the Prime Rocket. Now, Prime bicycles, you could say, are a relative newcomer to the scene. I think this is probably the best looking one of the lot right now. Shoot me down, but look at it. Look at this bike, it's just so nice looking. Now, on the design team behind the bike includes Cesar Rojo, who of course has worked with Mondraker, he's worked with Intense, and of course the beautiful Uno bicycle. So you can kind of see some design attributes going on there, as well as the fact that you know it's going to be a really, really good bike. Now, there's a little bit of Canyon in that seat tube. There's a little bit of Kona about the rocker there, a little bit of Uno about the top tube going into the head tube there. It's kind of like a best hits kind of downhill bike, I think. But man, look at the thing. So it's 29-inch wheel only, 195mm of rear wheel travel on there. 3 sizes available to you. Geometry will give you a 63.5 degree head angle. Again, pretty staple. 450mm chainstays on the back. The number works. 455 up to 500mm reach. Yep, people are kind of settling on that for the downhill race bike now. And it's got integrated protection around the BB, down tube and chainstay, as you can see, but it just looks seamless the way it's part of the bike. Really well considered. And it's also got double row bearings on the drive side. So the bearings basically give all the suspension just loads of additional support where it really needs it from the torque that you're going to be putting into the bike. Choice of navy and anthracite fade with that really cool paint splatter, I guess you call it splatter, on the frame. Beautiful looking bike. There's several options available. You custom build them on the site, with builds starting at €5,299. I mean, look at the thing. It is such a nice looking bike. Next up, Atherton bikes. Now, they kind of throw people out here in a sort of the Marmite division of how the bike looks, but sometimes looks are based around how technical an item is. And I think these frames are absolutely beautiful, as well as being technical works of art as well. Now they're really cool in the approach in the way that they're made, because they use additive manufactured lugs on them essentially. So they're powdered titanium. Absolutely incredible the way they're built, and all of the lugs are manufactured on a single plate. And then you have carbon tubes that are bonded into the frame. Now, the way that they're designing and producing these frames means that it's very easy for them to offer custom geometry on the bikes. You just custom cut the carbon tubes to the right size. It's an amazing system, and I absolutely love what they're doing here. And that's based around the DW6 suspension platform on the back, which essentially handles like previous DW platforms, but what it enables them to do is to have the exact same feeling rear suspension, no matter what the geometry configurations are. Now that's a really smart way of incorporating something different onto the back end of their bikes. Now let's have a little look at them up close. Now this one is a 29-inch wheel bike, although I'm sure knowing them, they will be experimenting with absolutely everything. Now there's 6 sizes available, so if you're on the shorter or the really tall side, really you want to be checking out the Atherton bikes actually. Very cool way of doing things. So geometry, head angle, you're talking 63 degrees. Reach on them varies from 410, which is tiny really for a downhill bike, up to 510 millimeters. So a big range there. Chainstays 445 up to 455 millimeters, size specific there. Obviously the shorter bikes, shorter chainstay, bigger bikes, bigger chainstays. It's a great looking bike, no doubt. Completely different aesthetics to the sort of the slender racing car and sort of supercar themed bikes like you see from Mondraker and Prime, but nonetheless it's a functional looking bike that's completely customizable. I love that, I think it's great. Now I'm going to be going to see them soon actually to find out, basically I just want to see every stage of how these things are built with my own eyes. I'm going to make a video about that for GMBN Tech, so keep your eyes out on that one. Now currently builds are offered from about £6,000, but like I say, there is going to be custom options available to you, so it's a really exciting project, I think. Next up, the latest Propain Rage. Now, I mean, look at this thing. This is an absolute looker from Propain, another looker because they keep on churning out really good looking bikes. But the latest version of their Rage downhill platform is a much improved bike as well. So the shock position has now changed from behind the seat tube there to in front of the seat tube. Better positioning for both protection of the shock and also the geometry of the bike, and of course the suspension performance on there. Now looking at the bike up close, I mean, you can get it in mixed wheel size, you can get it in 29er using the flip chip system on there to tweak the geometry accordingly. 215 millimeters of rear wheel travel, and there's 3 frame sizes there. So you've got adjustable chainstay length on all of them between 445 and 460, so 2 settings there. Reach goes from 440, 465 and then 495 across the 3, so plenty big enough on the size large there. 63 degree head angle up front. Frame and chainstay protection built into them, and something I particularly like is their shielded bearing system. Now this is a really cool way to keep the crap out of the bearings and make the bike consistently perform in bad conditions. Brilliant for us here in Europe, no doubt. It's a really pretty bike, and actually I don't know why we don't see more in the way of Propain in general, because their form follows across all of the bikes they design. If you like the look of this, check out some of their other bikes. Really, really good brand. Pricing from €3,999. So as far as downhill race bikes go, that's pretty competitive. The latest Trek Session. Now for many years, you no doubt will have heard, oh, it looks like a Session. For good reason. Trek knows how to build downhill race bikes. And this latest version has been tweaked. It's now made from alloy and it has the higher pivot placement. They've been in search of even more forward momentum from their downhill race platform. As with all of their bikes, it uses an active braking pivot on the rear, essentially a single pivot design, but using an active braking pivot for obvious reasons to neutralize the braking feel from that rear suspension. It's a very, very active design, very supportive. Now this one has either a mixed wheel setup or a 29-inch wheel available to 200 millimeters of rear wheel travel, using the high pivot design with that idler wheel over the top there, so it pedals like a low pivot design, but none of the issues associated with a high pivot there. Now, in a similar vein to Specialized, that have gone to their S sizing to base it around the length of the bikes, Trek have done the same thing, basing their bikes, especially downhill bikes, on reach, which of course is the most important thing with a downhill bike, getting the correct length on them. So there's size-specific chainstay lengths to take into account here, so I'm going to read these separately. So you've got the R1, R2 and R3 sizes. So in terms of reach, you've got 440, 465 and 495 millimeters available to you. And then with the chainstays, grow proportionally with those. So in terms of R1, R2 and R3, you've got 435, 445 and 452 millimeters. So they really want the bike to handle correctly for the right length there. Now, interestingly, they've got a flip chip on there, and it's not really to factor in geometry, it's to change the progression on the rear end of the bike. And I absolutely love this feature. So you can have between 20 or 25%. So you might want a bit more on the plush side. I don't know if you're messing around, jumping, stuff like that. Or you can have 25% if you're really hitting stuff harder. That is a race bike feature for sure. Internal or external cable routing as well. Brilliant. Imagining if you, I don't know, you split a rear brake hose or something, you've not got a chance to fit a new brake before a race, put it external routed, get back out there. Just brilliant stuff. Doesn't it look like such a dialed bike? You know what it looks like? It looks like a session, doesn't it? So retail price from 4,600 up to 6,400, and there's frame options available too. I mean, yeah, they've done it again. They've made arguably one of the best downhill bikes you can buy. What was your favourite downhill bike in this video, and have we missed out a downhill bike? I know there's a few cool prototypes like from Common Sale that we've seen floating around, and some other interesting stuff. Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you in the next video. See you later.